Harvard is committing $100 million to study and try to make amends for its ties to slavery. The Ivy League announced a $100 million investment to research its extensive ties with slavery, with some of those funds going directly to descendants of enslaved people who labored at the campus. The announcement comes after the school released a new report detailing the many ways the college benefited from slavery and perpetuated racial inequality for decades.
3 black climbers are taking representation to new heights on summits across America and around the world. Yes, we're talking about Saray Kumalo is the first black African woman to reach the world's tallest peak, Mount Everest in the Himalayas. Andrew Alexander King has climbed over 66 mountains, but says the first mountain he ever climbed was getting out of the projects in Detroit. He says his long-term goal is to climb the 14th highest mountains and volcano peaks on each continent. If accomplished, he'll be the first black man to do so. And Peter Natuli is Kenya's rock climber known for scaling mountains in his bare feet. In 2021, Natuli was featured in the documentary Cold Feet. The climbers say they want to make the sport more diverse and inclusive to increase black representation in the sport.
A black fashion designer is using his passion for fashion to share black stories at predominantly white institutions. Jaquil Durham is a South Carolina native. His first collection highlights the contributions of African Americans to Clemson University. The designs include QR codes that can be scanned to share the backstory behind each design. Durham says he got his start in fashion after skipping prom and using the money for his tuxedo to start his own fashion line. He says he plans to share his future collections at other predominantly white institutions in the South.
After being blasted for his comments about women's roles earlier this month, Cam Newton released a video attempting to explain himself.
I'll be the first person to tell you, did I make a mistake by not going into depth of a certain topic? Yes. I should have said on top of what I also said and mentioned that not only should a woman know when to be quiet, a man also should know when to be quiet.
So that's just a very small piece. The entire video is 8 minutes. In it, Cam goes on to say that he is not sexist and he recognized that his comments upset many fans, but he is at peace with his criticism. So I'm really happy that he was able to come forward. But honestly, I feel like his explanation of it it made it kind of worse, to be honest. It didn't really get him in any less hot water. He still was just saying I'm not sexist, but you already said what you said. You already said how you feel in the first video.
He definitely already said what he said, but I watched the whole 8-minute video and he was just going in circles.
Exactly.
He didn't really say anything. The whole thing was, I'm not sexist, a black man or a white man or whomever should match your fly. That's basically what he said. He didn't. The 8 minutes was just a waste.
My mom told me if you're talking in circles and if you feel like you got to explain yourself from the situation, you're probably stuck your foot in your mouth from Jump Street. So I don't know if he should just left this alone and just let it kind of fade to black, so to speak. But instead, he wanted to get out and say this is what the problem was. But again, he didn't really explain himself enough to where people are like, oh, now we understand. So if I was him, I'd leave this alone.
Yeah, and the news cycle, it changes so fast, right? I think we forgot about this, and now we're talking about it again, right? Yeah. So sometimes just let it die, let it go. I don't need to bring it back up again.
I do believe that the news cycle updates, but I forgot about it for now. But next time I hear about Cam Newton, this is going to be brought up at the top of my mind. A great example is Doja Cat. Years ago, she did that, but every single time I think about Doja Cat, I say, oh my God, I love her as an artist, but that chat room. So I do believe that he needed to come back and address this, but I don't think that there was enough media training that went along with this apology that it didn't really seem like an apology. It seemed more like excuses for what you already said. So it's still in the back of my head.
Yeah, but he's been in the game long enough to know how he should be able to talk to the public, right?
Yeah.
And thank God it's not football season, because if it was, this could be a problem where he can encounter after every game. And he doesn't want that to take a toll on him mentally. So I say he got to win the fact that it's no football season right now, but if it was, this could be a bigger problem for him. All right, a black woman has been named valedictorian nearly 40 years after her high school graduation. Tracy Mears was awarded the title 38 years after her Illinois high school failed to make her its first black valedictorian. Now, the 55-year-old was awarded the title by the superintendent after a screening of the documentary No Title for Tracy, which recounts her story. Despite earning better grades, Mears was forced to share the title of the top student with a white student at her 1984 graduation. At the time, Mears was a popular cheerleader. She said she felt upset and angry and feels she was passed over for the title because she was black. She says all these years later, it's still painful.
And Black Girl Magic is reborn on Broadway. The Broadway revival for colored girls marks Camille A. Brown's directorial debut on Broadway. She becomes the first Black woman to serve as both director and choreographer on a Broadway production in more than 65 years. The show is about the celebration of power of Black womanhood. In it, 7 women share their stories and find strength in each other's humor and passion through a fusion of music, dance, poetry, and song. For Colored Girls originally made its Broadway premiere at the Booth Theater in 1976. It received a Tony nomination for Best Play. The show runs now through August 14th.
And at the University of Portland, it's appointed its first African-American president. Robert Kelly is the private Catholic university's first African-American president. He's also the first president who is not a priest. Now, last year, the university held a nationwide search in an effort to attract more diverse candidates. They found Kelly, who comes from Loyola University in Baltimore, which is a Catholic university. And Kelly, he will begin serving in his new role on July 1st.
Now to a Black woman who's a real-life guardian of the galaxy. Dr. Mujage Cooper is one of the few Black women at NASA now. Her work can be best compared to the popular Marvel characters in the box office hit The Guardians of the Galaxy. Dr. Mu serves in a male-dominated role. She's an eternal pearl of the ongoing mission of determining in life on Mars is possible. Her ultimate goal is to introduce more people to STEM. She hopes to encourage boys and girls from underrepresented communities to join the field. Dr. Mu says she takes pride in serving as a role model for women in science and technology.
And United Airlines is pledging to diversify its pilot school. The flight school is called United Aviate Academy. The goal is to train 5,000 pilots by 2030. The airline says half of the new pilots will be women and people of color. The news comes, though, as large numbers of United pilots are expected to retire soon. The company says by diversifying the school, they hope to break down barriers and give aspiring minority pilots a direct path to jobs. Now, according to U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, only 5% of pilots are women and 6% are people of color.
And descendants of slaves who worked on President James Madison's Virginia plantation are accusing the estate's majority-white board of violating a power-sharing agreement. Last year, the foundation agreed to give equal authority on the board to its Black members. And at the time, the agreement was hailed as a groundbreaking power-sharing deal that could serve as a model for other historic sites where Black people were once enslaved. But now, the descendants group say the foundation has done just the opposite. They've stripped board nominating power from the Black descendants, and the relationship went from bad to worse when the foundation recently fired 3 senior staff members who supported the Black descendants community. The National Trust, who owns the property, is now stepping in. They're working to achieve a resolution dispute by making the board 50-50. They're hoping to have a new board member seated by October end of this year. And so this is really interesting. And so we don't talk enough about descendants of slaves, but I'm really happy that they're stepping in and making this knowledge, because we don't really have these conversations many times. And of course, happy here that Black Report, we're bringing it to light.
Definitely.
Absolutely. No, this is really good. I mean, I definitely think that as a descendant of slaves, if your ancestors worked on a plantation or a field, you deserve access. You deserve representation. So I'm glad that the board, that the people who actually own the plantation are getting this right and stepping in and making sure that the descendants of the slaves on that plantation, that they get their equal rights as well.
I agree. You know, when we talk about reparations all the time, we bring that up here on the show. And this is another way of saying, like, look, here's our way of saying we realize what was done was wrong. How can we make things better? How can we say we've turned this corner for the best? So it's things like this that can definitely do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.